Hello everyone, greetings. Welcome to BUD403 Profiles of Buddhist Leadership Course 2020 Spring, conducted by International University of the East, Om Meditation Center, Los Angeles. My name is Venerable Nivitigala Sumita. I'm also known as Bhante Sumita, and I'm a Buddhist monk for several decades. And I have been teaching Buddhism, meditation, Pali studies, and ESL for quite a while in several universities. And I'm very happy to be on board here at the International University of the East to teach you this subject. It would have been really great if we could meet in person at the classroom, wouldn't it? But the unprecedented catastrophe triggered by the recent corona outbreak has changed the whole system in the world, forcing us to revitalize and remodel our entire system. The power of the nature is truly amazing, isn't it? We humans have been very selfish, I suppose, because we have been overwhelmed with a super ego, assuming that we have the exclusive right and authority to do whatever we want in the world, and we pretended to claim the ownership of the entire universe. Hence, we didn't give any space or respect for the other sentient beings in the world. And also, we have inflicted an irreparable damage to the environment. I guess this is a blessing in disguise for all of us, as the nature has decided to reset the mess caused by the humans. Now we are quarantined and locked down, and we have very limited power to exercise our freedom at present. The toll that we have to pay today is very heavy, as we didn't pay enough attention to the warnings of the nature when it gave us some signs such as inferno like fires in Amazon forest and Australia. Now we have an opportunity to look back into our own system, our own inner value system, and our leadership from various levels such as political, social, religious categories must have a self analysis and an honest criticism towards their own systems. I strongly believe we have to respect others if we expect respect from others. We cannot force others to respect us without we respecting them first. Anyway, it's just a thought for you guys also to consider seriously as you are going to be our future leaders. You may reconsider the loopholes of the current system if you wish to have a better and safer world in future. Okay, with that being said, let's get back to the class. So, profiles of leadership, profiles of Buddhist leadership is a 4 credit course, and I'm hopeful that we would be able to enjoy these coming weeks, learning from each other the strong message and principles of Buddhism to become effective and efficient leaders through a whole person education system. So, here's the brief summary of our course details, and I'm sure you must have gone through this course syllabus already. Okay, please send me an email to receive the e-copies of the course materials. You are welcome to ask any question regarding the course content, and we will discuss about the weekly assignments, mid-semester exam, and final exam in the coming weeks. As this is quite an extraordinary situation to the entire world, I thought of not assigning any textbook for you, but rather I preferred to share with you some already available books and articles in the internet. Okay, so let's get started. Um, Introduction. Definition of leadership. So, Lisa, Lisa Cash Hansen says leadership is the ability to guide others without force into a direction or decision that leaves them still feeling empowered and accomplished. So the task of the leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. Well, Kevin Cruz is a CEO and an author of Great Leaders Have No Rules. And I found an article by him, What's Leadership? He started with What's Not Leadership? Interesting. Leadership has nothing to do with seniority or one's position in the hierarchy of a company. Too many talk about a company's leadership referring to the senior most executives in the organization. They are just that seniors, executives. Leadership doesn't automatically happen when you reach a certain pay grade. Hopefully, you find it there, but there are no guarantees. Number two, leadership has nothing to do with titles. Similar to the point above, just because you have a C level title doesn't automatically make you a leader. In all of his talks, Kevin says he stressed the fact that you don't need the title to lead. In fact, you can be a leader in your place of worship, your neighborhood, in your family, all without having a title. Then next one is leadership has nothing to do with personal attributes. Say the word leader, and most people think of domineering, take charge, charismatic individuals. We often think of icons from history like General Patton or President Lincoln, but leadership isn't an adjective. We don't need extroverted, charismatic traits to practice leadership. And those with charisma don't automatically lead. Leadership isn't management. This is the big one. Leadership and management are not synonymous. You have 15 people in your downline and P&L responsibility. Good for you. Hopefully, you are a good manager. Good management is needed. Manager needs to plan, measure, monitor, coordinate, solve, hire, fire, and so many other things. Typically, managers manage things, leaders lead people. So, again, what's leadership? Let's see some of the most respected business thinkers of our time. define leadership. And let's consider what's wrong with their definitions. For example, Peter Drucker, he says, the only definition of a leader is someone who has followers. Really? Um, this instance of tautology is so simplistic as to be dangerous. A new army captain is put in the command of 200 soldiers. He never leaves his room or utters a word to the men and women in his unit. Perhaps routine others, routine orders are given through a subordinate. By default, his troops have to follow orders. Is the captain really a leader? Commander, yes. Leader, no. Drucker is, of course, a brilliant thinker of modern business, but his definition of leader is too simple. Warren Bennis. He says leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Every spring, you have a vision for a garden, and with lots of work, carrots and tomatoes become reality. Are you a leader? No, you are a gardener. Benny's definition seems to have forgotten others. Bill Gates. As we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. This definition includes others, and empowerment is a good thing, but to what end? I've seen many empowered others in my life, Kevin says, for writing hooligans to Google workers who were so misaligned with the rest of the company they found themselves unemployed. Gates's definition, according to Kevin, lacks the parts about goal or vision. John Maxwell. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I like minimalism, Kevin says, but this reduction is too much. A robber with a gun has influence over his victim. A manager has the power to fire team members, which provides a lot of influence. But does this influence make a robber or a manager a leader? Maxwell's definition omits the source of influence. So, what is leadership? Leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. Notice some key elements of this definition here. Number one, leadership stems from social influence, not authority or power. Key element two, leadership requires others, and that implies they don't need to be direct reports. Key element three, no mention of personality traits, attributes, or even a title. There are many styles, many paths to effective leadership. Number four, it includes a goal, not influence with no intended outcome. Lastly, what makes this definition so different from many of the academic definitions? Out there is the inclusion of maximizes the effort. Most of Kevin's works in the area of employment engagement, and engaged employees give discretionary effort. So, according to Kevin, technically a leader could use social influence to just organize the efforts of others. He says the leadership is about maximizing the effort. It's not, hey everyone, let's line up and get to the top of the hill someday. But rather, hey, see the hill? Let's see how fast we can get to the top. And I'll buy the first round for anyone who can beat me up there. So, what do you think of my definition of leadership? Social influence, others, maximize effort towards a goal. Do those key elements work for you? So, these are some of the fine, beautiful, powerful thoughts about leadership definition. I like Kevin Cruz's idea of um, he's the creator of the leading for employment engagement e-learning program for management. So um, very interesting. Uh, best-selling book also is there by him. Employee engagement. These are some of the things for us to take a look. Okay. So now qualities of a Buddhist leader. Um, what is Buddhist leadership? We were talking about leadership. What is a Buddhist leader? What are the qualifications of a Buddhist leader? What are the requirements to be a Buddhist leader? I think to start with, we need to focus on Buddha's prime objective. What was his idea? His idea was not to do something materially. He didn't worry. He didn't worry about the material prosperity and all that stuff. He was not interested in engaging in worldly, mundane deals, but he was thinking something beyond that. He was already a king, a royal prince. He had very luxurious, comfortable, majestic lifestyle, but he left all of them behind because he wanted to see something beyond, out of the box. So he went deep into the jungle, meditated for years and years and years, underwent excruciating pains. His 6 year penances itself suggests the kind of sacrifice, dedication, and so much passion towards finding the goal and his infinite enthusiasm, unending urge to find the goal. That was his final liberation. And he found it, he achieved it. So his prime objective was something different. According to Pali Canon, by the way, Pali Canon is the original Buddhist canonical texts. There is something called Tipitaka, the three baskets, where all those canonical texts are included. According to Pali canons, the core essence of the Buddha's teaching is included into this small Pali stanza. Let me recite it for you. Sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sachita pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanam. Sabba papasa akaranang means avoid all evils, all unwholesome deeds. Kusalasa upasampada, propagate, cultivate all the wholesome things, all the good things, meritorious things. in life. Sachitta Paryodapanam, purify the mind. Chitta means mind. Purify the mind, the inner self, the inner spirit, inner peace. Strengthen the inner peace. Purify that. Etang Buddhana Sasanam. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. This is the message of the Buddha. So this is like the core essence that we need to focus when we are considering uh, the Buddhist leadership, because the Buddha's goal was to achieve Nibbana, the Nirvana, the enlightenment, the final liberation. And so he was leading all those Buddhist devotees, all his followers, towards that call. That was his leadership, and all the following leaders had also followed that beautiful path. So, I would like to um, start with this literature review today, to just to give you some idea of some of the concepts and some of the materials that we can find in the Buddhist literature. First of all, Path of Purification is a um, very big book, in fact, voluminous one. Um, this book was written in 5th century AD. It's pretty old one, and also there is a beautiful translation of this book. So you can have a look, and I also have the ebook I can share with you guys. And in this book, Buddha's um, entire path to liberation is explained in detail. And this is the most comprehensive treatise of, I must say, all the Buddhist literature. So far, the best, most comprehensive treatise on how to do meditation and what are the bits and pieces, techniques, skills, and what are the things that we should do. All the requirements are included, and also everything in detail, how to do all these things are there in this particular book. And the next one is Satya Vibhanga Sutta, is very powerful sutta, also comprehensive. Uh, it's not that extensive like Visuddhimagga, but it's one of those original canonical teachings. So in this sutta, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, um, are treated with little more elaboration, little more detail. I think this one is very important in considering the facts of Buddhist leadership is concerned. Next one is Kalama Sutta, the Buddha's Charter of Free Inquiry. The instruction of the Kalama is justly famous for the encouragement of free inquiry. The spirit of the sutta signifies a teaching that is exempt from fanaticism, bigotry, dogmatism, and intolerance. The Kalama Sutta, which sets forth the principles that should be followed by a seeker of truth, and which contains a standard things are judged by, belongs to a framework of the Dhamma. The four solaces taught in the sutta point out the extent to which the Buddha permits suspense of judgment in matters beyond normal cognition. The solaces show that the reason for a virtuous life does not necessarily depend on belief in rebirth or retribution, but on mental well being, required through the overcoming of greed, hate, and delusion. So this particular sutta, Kalama Sutta, is really, really a very powerful uh, ex, statement by the Buddha. And we also should not forget the fact that he was fighting against a system which was very well established those days, with so much discrimination against the women and caste system and all kinds of social stigma attached to the Indian society those days. And the Buddha was fighting very hard, and his teachings were really, really powerful and influential, and very brave and very modern, considering the fact that he was still living like thousands of years ago, 2000, over 2,500 years ago. And Sigalova Sutta is very powerful sutta again. Sigalova Sutta is one of the suttas in the Diga Nikaya, the long discourses, and there the whole social system, the hierarchy is explained, and a lot of people today actually they are talking about their rights. They fight for their rights. A lot of organizations, movements, trade unions, and all are there. Um, they are trying to fight for their rights. But here in Tigalova, the Sutta, the Buddha gave instructions very clearly to all those different segments of the society that we should focus, give priority to our own rights and duties first, our own duty first. When we do our duty, we will get our, um, we will do the contribution, and we will deserve a better place. And most of us today are fighting for rights, but forgetting our own duties. So, how do we treat um, different people in the society? For example, husband towards wife, wife towards husband, parents towards children, children towards parents, and um, servants towards employees, employees towards their employers, back and forth, and then the laity towards the clergy, clergy towards the laity, all kinds of social hierarchy, social order is explained here with different duties to be performed by each individual. Next one is Sariputta Sutta. Sariputta Sihanada Sutta is also called. And here Venerable Sariputta is talking about um, Venerable Sariputta is the chief high command, first disciple of the Buddha, and foremost among the wise. And how humble, how simple, how profound in wisdom was this monk, and how virtuous and noble was his conduct, his morality. They are all beautifully reflected in this sutta. I would also like to talk about this book called 2500 Years of Buddhism. I think when we consider about the history of Buddhism, um, Buddhism has over 2,500 years of history, and interesting historical events happen all throughout. So Professor Bapat is trying to touch base most of those events. This book was written in 1956, so definitely much Um, Later versions can be there. Um, more historical accounts can be there. I personally wanted to recommend this book because I also have read this book when I was doing my own studies. So I like to recommend that to you also. And um, so Professor Babar's book talks about India and Buddhism, origin of Buddhism, life and teaching for Buddhist councils, Ashoka and the expansion of Buddhism, principles, schools, and sects of Buddhism, Buddhist literature, Buddhist education, and some great Buddhists after Ashoka. Then Chinese travelers, uh, a brief survey of Buddhist art, places of Buddhist interest, later modifications of Buddhism, Buddhist studies in recent times, Buddhism in the modern world, and in retrospect. So these are the topics that he covers in this comprehensive um, historical account. And so these are very interesting um, books and suttas anyway. So Ashoka, um, another character that we can forget when we talk about the history of Buddhism. Ashoka's contribution to the propagation and development of Buddhism is um, enormous and beyond doubt. The way he contributed towards the Dhamma, initially becoming a very violent character, like trying to conquer many territories, and also did not have any thought for other people's life, and he would only focus on his selfish motives those days. And eventually, he killed many, and he conquered many territories. He had expanded his territories, but eventually he found that is not what he wanted. Um, that is not the thing that he was searching for peace and happiness, and that he could not find peace and happiness there. He was very restless afterwards. He was very traumatic. He heard the people's wailings. The wives were crying over their loss of their husbands, and lots of people injured, lots of people lost their life, and so much property was damaged, and all these things were reflecting and haunting um, the the inner spirit of King Ashoka. So eventually he turned towards Buddhism, and he became completely non-violent, and he was dedicating himself to promote and propagate Buddhism. And also his regime was more focusing on peaceful and non-violent movements, and also trying to work for the benefit of the community. It was a kind of retribution, kind of payback towards the community, uh, as against things that he has done at his early stage. So, life of Ashoka is very important for you guys to learn. And then there is another one called right speech as a basis for management training. And so, right speech, we also will learn more about right speech when we talk about Noble Eightfold Path. Um, and yeah, so we will learn about that more. This also will be important, especially for management. And Thera Theri Gata, that's Thera Gata and Theri Gata. are two books um, in Khuddaka Nikaya, another canonical segment in the Sutta Pitaka. So Thera means the elders, Theri means the male and female elders. They were arhants, liberated men and women. So they were recording their own emotional, spiritual journeys towards their liberation. Very wonderful two texts. So in dealing with Buddhist leadership, I think this book will also be very useful to all of us. And yeah, this one, What the Buddha Taught, is a very, very important book written by Venerable Walpola Rahula. And this book has been translated into French, German, Spanish, Italian, Yugoslavian, Sinhalese, Chinese, Burmese, Thai, Korean, Vietnamese, and Tamil. An interesting addition. According to Dr. I.B. Horner, president of the Polytech Society, in her review in the Middle Way Journal of the Buddhist Society, London, she says a model of a book should be authoritative and clear, logical and sober. This study is as comprehensive as it is mastery. So, what the Buddha taught is another beautiful piece of Buddhist thought. I think I highly recommend this book. And Buddhist view of leadership, a case study. I think this will be another good one for quest. This paper is concerned with the role of leadership in community organizations in Thailand. While previous studies of leadership have focused on leadership theories influenced by male-dominated North American studies, the present paper aims to demonstrate that it's necessary to take the influence of cultural, historical, and social structure into account. The purpose is to develop a model of leadership constructed through accounts of the leaders and their subordinate. The model of leadership can potentially enable the leaders and their subordinates to have a better understanding of the qualities, structure, boundaries, and processes of leadership, which can be useful in testing the application of the model in other settings and contexts. So this paper is really interesting one. And the other paper also, Adam Smith as Bodhisattva, a meta-analysis of global leadership, another ProQuest paper. The purpose of this paper is to review approaches of authentic leadership and mindfulness and to global competencies from the Buddhist perspective of leadership, Raja Dhamma. It considers the parallel approach of Adam Smith's moral leadership. So Raja Dhamma, there are 10 Raja Dhammas in Buddhism. I hope you know about the Bodhisattva. Um, According to Theravada Buddhism, he was the inspiring or the incoming or future Buddha. So he always had a lot of moral perfections. He was trying to perfect himself in many ways. And he would lead many communities, even animals sometimes. Like he would be born as an animal, a leader of an animal group, and then he would rescue them, help them. And in many cases, he was very wonderful, morally rich character. So this paper, Adam Smith's paper, also is a good comparison. The emphasis of this paper is a critique of the limitations of current teachings and practices in developing ethics and moral conduct in MBA programs and global leadership programs. And interesting again, findings. There is insufficient attention given to the Buddhist thought and practice of leadership. Rather than emphasizing the right mind and right conduct because of his moral philosophy, Adam Smith is offered of an exemplar of Bodhisattva whom business executives would respect and emulate. So this one it is really interesting paper. I hope you would like that paper too. Okay, next is addressing unintended ethical challenges of workplace mindfulness, a four-stage mindfulness development mode. Um, this study focuses on mindfulness programs in the corporate world, which are receiving increasing attention from behind business practitioners and organizational scholars. The workplace mindfulness literature is rapidly evolving, but most studies are oriented towards demonstrating the positive impacts of mindfulness as a state of mind. This study adopts a critical perspective to evaluate workplace mindfulness practice. So um, that would be an interesting book again, paper again. And okay, we have some more books too, but I would also like to talk about some of the contemporary Buddhist leaders in the world today. Um, well, we all, I think Dalai Lama needs no explanation. He's already such a world famous, um, very well respected person. And Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I had the privilege to meet him in when I was in India. He's look at this picture. He's so compassionate. He's so humble and such a simple person, and with a big heart and a lot of discipline and his wisdom, his compassion. I think are very very important that he deserves to be a top class Buddhist leader today. So, Claude Levenson's search for Tenzin Gyatso, the present Dalai Lama, took her across Himalayas from Lhasa to his headquarters in exile in Dharamsala. At Dharamsala, hours of personal interviews revealed the history of his prodigious life, of how a lively child came to be recognized as the 14th reincarnation of the Buddha of infinite compassion. The book offers a vivid portrayal of an important civilization based on sophisticated Buddhist tradition which faces extinction in Tibet. It covers the Dalai Lama's political program of the Middle Ways, which allows for a limited autonomy for Tibet. The preface brings the history up to the present day, focusing on the increase in human rights abuses in Tibet. So, this book can be very um, revealing and informative, and you might find this interesting. Apart from that, I also recommend you read about Dalai Lama, listen to his speeches, and look what he is doing everywhere in the world to propagate peace and harmony everywhere. The man in the middle um, is now pretty old, like I think he's in 80s now. I have met him personally too. He's a Sri Lankan. A.T. Ratna, often called the Gandhi of Sri Lanka. He has become popular for his massive meditation sessions in which hundreds of thousands of people converge to pray for peace. And right here in this picture, he is conducting a meditation for 6,000 prisoners in Sri Lanka. He served the Shramadana movement, which Ariyaratne established um, more than 50 years ago, is based on Buddhist and Gandhian principles. Sarvodaya in Sanskrit means awakening of all, and Shramadana to donate effort. The organization is the largest civil society movement in the country. By its own estimations, it works in 15,000 villages and attracts nearly 1 million volunteers annually. Some scholars have described its network of organizations with 3,000 paid employees as the world's largest people's participatory development movement. So, learn about Ariyaratna. Can be very useful. And then Aung San Suu Kyi, the current leader of Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi's life has been very painful. She had a tough time, but she also is very courageous woman, a brave woman. She also is the recipient of Nobel Peace Prize. So lots of things for you to learn about this life. There are more people like um, Anagarika Dharmapala of Sri Lanka, and also like, of course, in India, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and there can be other lot of Buddhist leaders in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Laos, and Sri Lanka, in India, in Tibet, um, and even in China, in mainland China and Taiwan and Korea and Japan. All these countries have produced amazing Buddhist leaders, and we should be able to figure out, find out some wonderful leaders from around the Buddhist globe. And in your course, I recommend you think of all these, research these about these people, and um, find someone, some character that you would like to research more and do a presentation later. Okay, so as I say at the beginning, so Buddha's teaching was leading all the followers, all his disciples to the realization of Nibbana, and to end the suffering, end the misery of this samsara or world. So he had a very powerful and beautiful way, um, explanatory way to explain all the details of the spiritual path, starting with sila or morality. And that is the very foundation of the next step, that is called samadhi or concentration. So the one who achieves samadhi or concentration should have sila, morality, as the foundation. Without sila, you can have samadhi. So, for example, Buddhist monks, they have a lot of silas or a lot of moral conduct. There is a code of conduct, like for Buddhist monks, hundreds of them, monks and nuns, they have to follow hundreds of um, disciplinary codes. And for lay people, lay Buddhist people, they also have 5 precepts. Sometimes once a month they can observe 8 precepts or 10 precepts. So they are very, very useful sila, morality. So the ethical consideration in Buddhism is the very foundation of the whole person education. So sila leads to samadhi, and samadhi leads to the final liberation or panya or wisdom. So this is the hierarchy of Buddhist spiritual journey. Okay, so with that, um, I would like to conclude for today, and we will speak more and we will discuss more. We will be in touch, and just let me know uh, about yourself. Send me a little more short description of about yourself, and let's get introduced. And these are my contact details, and we'll be in touch. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, and have a wonderful week ahead. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, and have a wonderful week ahead. Many blessings to all of you.